Hello and welcome to the Faces of Africa Pocket Edition, where we dissect and discuss the topics covered in our weekly documentary show, which takes you through the continent's history, cultures, and major issues through exploring great personalities. This week on Faces of Africa podcast, we're taking you to Nigeria. Our team traveled there to do a very special episode. I'm joined by Daniel Funard, who is the producer. Daniel, hello.
Hi, how are you, Fathiya? I'm happy to be back. It's been a while since I've been able to be on your wonderful podcast show.
Happy to have you here, and I know you have a lot to tell us about your experience in Nigeria. Tell us about the experience in terms of, first off, why did you choose to do this documentary?
Well, I've known Kalthum and her foundation since 2018, and I spent a lot of time in northern Nigeria reporting on the Boko Haram insurgency, on the security situation, on efforts that the military was making. And when I met Kalthum, again, you'll as you'll see in the documentary, she's quite a small person, but very dynamic. And I really had a lot of admiration for the efforts that she was putting into trying to do peace building in the area. So I got to know her well, and I thought, if there's somebody this world should know about, if there's somebody that could use the support of others, it's Kalthum and her foundation.
You said she's small. You mean her size, or?
Yeah. She's she's a small person, and it's funny because a lot of times people judge people on their appearance, and they expect somebody that's going to work in the security area, even if it's venturing in as an outsider, to be somehow intimidating physically. Yeah. And she is not intimidating physically, although very charming.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces of the documentary, and Kalthum, as you're talking about her, as much as she's small, you can tell her vision is big. How do you think she started her organization, her foundation? Do you think she was well accepted in the community with what she was doing?
Well, I think she had a lot of challenges, and I think one of the journalists we interviewed said that people automatically assume that women don't participate in certain arenas in that part of the country, and that perhaps her youth more than her size was going to hold her back. But she proved to be, very tenacious and very resourceful, and has tackled the situation there with a lot of ferocity.
I mean, I interviewed her on the podcast, I think a week ago, and of course she's very warm, and she does definitely have a vision for her foundation. But let's talk about the actual situation in Maiduguri. You were there in 2018. Tell us about the experience at that time as compared to now.
Well, it was dicey. I mean, there were a lot of abductions going on, and being a Westerner, they were starting to go after NGOs and journalists, and so I was usually in a military escort almost everywhere I went. Right. There was a curfew at 9:00 at night. Everybody had to be off the streets by then, which of course means that the life of the city is hampered. People have to go to eat early. They need to go visit each other early. It made for a situation where we were in the hotel that normally hosts the military, the command hotel, and it very much felt bunkered down. The guards outside were very strict, et cetera, and there was always the threat of a bombing, of an attack, of an abduction. So it was a tough situation. It was, obviously I was in and out, so much tougher for the locals than for me.
Yeah, talking about the locals, Kalthum is actually, I don't know if she still is, but according to the bits and pieces I've watched from the documentary, she's the chief negotiator, primary negotiator with the Boko Haram. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think when I was there in 2018, and I was there a bunch of times in 2018, 2019, so it wasn't just I saw her once, but when I was there was when she was just trying to develop this relationship with the Boko Haram so that they would trust her, so that she could work as an honest broker to get people released, back to their families. She wasn't, taking the military side, although obviously Anybody that was trying to build peace there needed some support from the military. She wasn't taking the Boko Haram side, certainly. She was trying to convince them to undo bad things that they did. But trying to straddle that, that area, trying to be a neutral party, not an easy thing to do.
Definitely. I think that she's very courageous, to even talk to the Boko Haram. I mean, it's a terrorist organization. So definitely it's very, it speaks a lot about her personality, right?
Well, she tells the story about her first encounter, basically going into the unknown, going into the bush, into a place that she had no real security for herself. She wasn't armed. She didn't have a security detail. She didn't have the military watching from a plane or anything like that. She basically sort of went behind enemy lines to try to gain some trust and get one particular person out of there. So it was quite brave. You would think, sometimes you would think, okay, risk reward. I'll risk myself, but I want to get 100 people out.
Right.
But here she was, willing to trade her own life for somebody else's.
Definitely someone to look up to for sure, for a lot of people in Africa. But let's talk about this time around when you went back to Maiduguri. I know there were floods. What was the experience like shooting, and what role was Kalthum playing at that particular point?
Yeah, it was difficult. We got there and there was the basically the whole city was underwater. There were about 1 million people displaced. People were sleeping on the roofs. People were sleeping on the overpasses. And, any place that was high enough to get out of the water, and people were trudging through the water with their belongings, looking for high ground, looking for another place. It was quite miserable, and as a journalist, you try to turn off your feelings when you're doing things like that. You want to do your job, you want to get the interviews, you want to get the pictures. We were documenting a bit of what was going on because she was involved with a health initiative that her foundation had started and was distributing medicine and doing kind of triage. Medical care. But it was, I really felt sorry for the people of Maiduguri. They've gone through a lot there, and this is just another misery that they had to go through. And it's lucky that they have people like Kalthum that out of the goodness of their heart go around trying to help people out in a tough situation.
Right, that's very interesting. Let's talk about the documentary a bit more. What are we expecting to see in the documentary?
Well, I think we reprise the Boko Haram history a bit to kind of set up just how brave Kalthum had to be to go into this. And, there's a lot of things that have gone on there, one of which is the Chibok girls' abduction when 276 girls got taken.
Yeah.
And that got a lot of international recognition, and there were a lot of people saying, get those girls freed. I mean, a lot of people thought, I have a daughter in high school, how would I feel if this happened? It really resonated with people. But did the international community do anything to solve the situation? I mean, not really. Quite honestly, it took local forces, the military, the government, and community leaders like Kalthum, had to stand up for what is right and stand up against the insurgents and their violent ways.
Yeah, that's quite commendable, But what else, from a producer's cut point of view, have we not seen, or are we not going to see in the documentary that you experienced?
Well, there was just so much. There was so much to take in that was there. We could have done a whole, part one that was just the field hospital that she set up and all the people that were going through stuff and the expertise that she had recruited into her foundation to be able to deal with basic medical needs, not really prepared for an emergency, but having to react to one. And then, of course, you're going to hear from one of the people that she got freed from the Boko Haram, but we talked to many. And they all had amazing stories. And they all, were looking right into the abyss thinking, I'm going to be here in captivity forever.
Right.
And Kalthum got them out, within months. Not,
Wow.
It doesn't happen right away.
Yeah.
And so there were quite a few characters that we weren't able to include in this.
Yeah.
And I just encourage people to look at to look at Kalthum, the Kalthum Foundation online. Look at them on Facebook. Keep up with what they're doing, because they're really doing some terrific work. And there's some great stories that you'll see in the documentary this weekend,
Right.
but also some great stories that will continue to come out as she continues her work.
Right. I think that's a very good place to end the podcast. Thank you so much, Daniel, for your insights. So I'm looking forward to watching the documentary myself.
Me too.
You too. I like that. Thank you so much for your time.
Bye.